There has been plenty of focus on defensive tackle and offensive line for needs for the Dolphins. But what about the edge group? Our look today at our final prospect rankings for the 2024 NFL draft class at the edge position, with prospects graded specifically for what we're anticipating the Dolphins scheme will look like.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins and co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We are focused on the edge group here today. This is our fifth show of the week. If you can't tell, we're getting close to the NFL draft. We had a doubleheader on Monday with wide receiver final rankings and the Devonta Smith contract's implications on the Dolphins. We did interior defensive line rankings yesterday. And then was it interior? It was offensive tackle yesterday. It's too many shows. They're all blending together. So offensive tackle, offensive line rankings yesterday. And then Chris Greer had his media availability before the draft, and we covered some of the things that he said there, which I thought there were some very interesting comments made. You can catch all of those. But today is the edge group. And I want to kind of structure this conversation a little bit differently because for Miami, it is a position that is a little difficult to anticipate how it's going to fall in the queue. And Chris Greer, one of the things that he did emphasize yesterday was that, best player available is the primary focus, particularly in the first few rounds, when you have more control of what your draft board looks like and who best players available actually are. So this Dolphins team is coming into this year, and we won't know for sure until closer to training camp the status of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, but two bona fide stud edge players that do exist on this Dolphins roster. And then a third pass rusher in Shaq Barrett, who's had some really impressive seasons, is a highly productive pressure player, even as he's slowing down in his career, but would probably benefit from the role that he will play on the Dolphins this season as somebody that when Chubb and Phillips are back to 100% is playing in a reduced rotational type of role. I want to frame this conversation first by looking at who would be upgrades over those three players, because it's a fairly short list. And I like the edge group. I actually have 7 edge rushers with top 100 grades. That's maybe a little lean versus the standard. And maybe for some different schemes that you might be grading for, you could get 1, 2, maybe 3 of the guys that kind of boost your way up and get to 10. But this is a group specifically where when you put the board together and you're looking at where do the Dolphins players rank versus these prospects for what you're forecasting they're going to be early in their careers in year one, the upgrade opportunities for the Dolphins in this spot are limited, but you have to counterbalance that with when will Chubb and Phillips be 100% ready to play and play their preferred snap volume? I don't have that answer, and I don't know that the Dolphins do either. So it's at least worth talking about the upper echelon players to some degree. So I stack the top 3 guys. There's kind of a consensus top 3 of Dallas Turner from Alabama, who's predictively, I think, projected to be the first of this group off the board. Laiatu Latu, from UCLA, and Jared Verse from Florida State. Those are the 3 consensus top edge rushers in this class. Would it surprise me if Penn State's Chop Robinson snuck in there based off of the athletic profile that he has, or Latu's medicals? He had a spinal fusion that prompted him in college to medically retire, and then he unretired and transferred from Washington to UCLA. No, I would not be surprised if the predictive order ends up getting upset based off of the kinds of information that NFL teams have that we don't. But if you're just basing off of talent and athletic profile and pass rush prowess and ability to play the run and the tape and your production, the general consensus for draft forecasting has a consensus 3 of Turner, Latu, and Verse. I think the best player for Miami is Jared Verse from Florida State. He checks in as my top edge in this class, and it's for the power elements of his game. I think for a lot of pass rush players, the ability to have the power club in the bag early is really helpful to your ability to win as a pass rusher early on. If you are more of a hand counter player, that timing can be interrupted. If you're more of a speed player, you have a very rude awakening when you just can't run the loop on guys. And I'm not saying that Turner or Latu are that, because they're not. But if you ask me who has the best speed to power conversion of the top three guys, I think it's Jared Verse. And I think he's probably the most consistent run defender of the three players as well. So you have early down volume that you feel like is available to you. And while he doesn't corner or have the same first step explosiveness, although he does have a 1.6 10-yard split, which is 80th percentile for edge defenders since 2000 at the NFL Combine. His ability to convert that first step into collapsing the edge of the pocket and reducing the angles in which he has to play off of to get to the quarterback, I think is where he really, really shines. And I think for Miami, when you take into account we're anticipating this Baltimore multiple front type scheme, there's going to be even front stuff, but there is also going to be odd front stuff. Guys who can stand up but simultaneously put their hand in the dirt. I think Verse has the first step quickness to threaten from wider alignments, and he has the hand power to play from tighter alignments and be better against the run when you are reduced inside and playing tighter to the ball. So that for me is the 1-2 punch of combination that I think Verse is the most complete projection for Miami. Is he there? Is he not there? That's a different story. Just a quick rundown on him. 33.5-inch arms. That's the length at edge is something that gets talked about frequently. That passes every threshold you'll need. That's 50th percentile. So it's right in the middle of edge players, but the linear explosiveness, you talk about speed to power, and it's having first step quickness and then having short distance power with that. And that's manifested in his testing. 1.6 10-yard split, as we mentioned, was 80th percentile. So that's first step quickness. And then his standing broad jump was 10 feet 7 inches at 254 pounds. That's 92nd percentile for edge defenders at the combine since 2000. So that initial twitch and then that raw power exists for Jared Verse. I have Laiatu Latu as my second edge rusher in this draft class, and not too far off the pace that Jared Verse is setting. This is the most complete pass rusher of any of the options in the 2024 NFL draft. You see more counters, more hand counters here than probably any player in recent memory. Like it's a very impressive variety in ways in which Laiatu beats offensive tackles. He can win inside, he can win off the loop, he can win with finesse, he can win with speed. He does have a power element to his game at almost 6'5", 260 pounds. He's a little shorter in the arm length than Jared Verse. He's about an inch shorter in the arms, which makes his ability to play with the hand counters that much more important, because that's where he's going to have to lean into winning. He's not as twitchy or as explosive as what Jared Verse is either. Laiatu had a 32-inch vertical versus a 35 for Jared Verse. The 32 is 35th percentile for edge defenders since 2000 at the combine. A 35 is 71st percentile. The standing broad jump, Jared Verse had the 10.7, and Latu had a 9.8, which is about a foot shorter, which puts him 51st percentile. So there's still like good athletic profile here. He's just not as long. I don't think he's as physical against the run. I don't think he has the speed to power conversion, but he is a more diverse pass rusher. So if that matters to you, or if that matters to the Dolphins, okay, you got a 6'5", 260-pound edge guy with 10 pass rush moves in his bag. Go for it. Dallas Turner is the guy that I have third. That is the only other guy that I have with a firm first-round grade for the Dolphins specific scheme. He's the most toolsy. He's 6'3", 247 pounds, but he's got an 88th percentile wingspan, 83 inches. He's got 34.5-inch arms. So 34.5 versus 33.5 versus 32.5. The length is there. The 98th percentile 40-yard dash, over 40 inches in the vertical jump. Same broad jump as Jared Verse. So you have a little bit more of an angular frame, but a longer player in Dallas Turner. He's just, for me, I think a little bit more of a penetration instead of somebody who is capable of controlling the point and controlling the edge with his anchor in the run game. And Dallas Turner, I think, also has the furthest to go as far as where he wins as a pass rusher. That's not to say he won't get there, because he's got elite tools. And because of that, he will probably predictively be the first guy off the board. Now, I had the day two guys that we haven't gotten into yet, but I did want to kind of set the stage on the primary guys and why I stack them the way that I do. We're going to shift gears, go to the day two guys, talk about how I rank them specifically for Miami scheme and why. That's next here on this episode of Locked on Dolphins. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why I have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be receptive to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, might not have the time or resources for a robust hiring process. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier for you. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Day two guys for me. I do have one guy with a late 1, early 2. That's Darius Robinson from Missouri. My 5th ranked offensive tackle. Geez, I'm in yesterday's mindset. Edge rusher is Chop Robinson from Penn State. I have a firm 2 on him. I want to draw the line in the sand right there, because none of these players, when graded against the same criteria that I grade the Dolphins players on, none of these players check in above Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips. I don't think that's a disqualifier from you drafting any of them, because Jalen Phillips is, now we know, 2 years from a contract decision. Chris Greer announced yesterday they're planning on exercising his 5th-year option, but he's coming off an Achilles injury. So there's like a 2-year snapshot where Jalen Phillips is guaranteed to be a part of the mix. Beyond that, how does he recover off the Achilles? Does he continue to stay healthy like he was his first 2 seasons in the league? Is other opportunities can come up to pay other big money contracts where you would not be in a position to pay Jalen Phillips for those other various variables that would be at play. There's a lot of unknown. And then Bradley Chubb, this player's coming off an ACL, has dealt with some injury stuff in the past. They'll be getting through kind of the meat of this contract extension that they gave him after this season, where there is an exit ramp there if they wanted to take it. This, for 2025, it would probably be post June 1st, but nevertheless, it does exist. That, I think, leaves the door open. And then your third pass rusher, and you need as many quality pass rushers as you can get, is Shaq Barrett on a 1-year deal, right? So that's obvious. I do have Verse, Latu, and Turner would check in for the Dolphins as the third edge rusher on the depth chart when grading the Dolphins players against the same scheme. Any other name that I talk about will not check in above Shaq Barrett. And again, because of the injuries to Chubb and Phillips and the unknown variable of their recovery windows, that's not to say you wouldn't advocate for those guys getting snaps and potentially playing 400, 500 snaps for you in their rookie season before the third edge rusher role opens up if you don't re-sign Shaq Barrett. And it might be a top 2 edge spot depending on what you do with Bradley Chubb, right? Like there's all kinds of unknown and flexibility that exists with this, that it shouldn't preclude you from drafting a player just because you say, oh, well, he'd be our 4th edge rusher. We don't want to invest that. That's a role this year that I think would be a 400 or 500 snap role for the Dolphins. but it is at least worth acknowledging expectations. Healthy Chubb and Phillips, they're still going to be your dudes at least this year and probably next year. Shaq Barrett, really high caliber player within a specific kind of role, diminishing physical asset as far as what his, as an aging player who didn't really have a lot in his bag to work with anyway, but is so football IQ savvy that you don't doubt he's going to be a quality rotational guy for you, and kind of like what Melvin Ingram was a few years ago. Darius Robinson from Missouri is the next guy on the list, and he's the late 1, early 2 that I have. He grades just below Shaq Barrett. I think the one thing that Robinson has that Barrett doesn't is a little bit more positional versatility to kick down inside and play inside versus being an outside presence for you. That ends up grading very well for me in this particular scheme, the positional flexibility. If you were looking off pure physical profile, pure athletic profile and potential, I do think Chalk Robinson would probably grade higher. But because Darius Robinson from Missouri can play more roles, he's played in the 280s down and been an inside player for Missouri. He's played in the 260s and been an edge guy. Like, you have that wide of a range to find an appropriate role within the other personnel that you have to complement it. That really helps. And the Dolphins have gone after a lot of versatile players at a lot of different spots. Whereas Chop Robinson, for me, I do have a 2-1. He'd be the 4th guy when everybody's healthy if he's here. There's a long-term developmental upside for Chop Robinson that I think is really difficult to ignore when you consider just how explosive he is as a player. But the early down stuff for him is kind of where I have my questions. He's 22nd percentile for height, 27th percentile for weight, 5th percentile for wingspan. He's got shorter arms than Latu at 32.5 on the nose. But then he's got a longer broad jump than any of the other players that we've talked about. He's got an 84th percentile short shuttle, which measures short area agility and ability to bend the corner off the edge and flatten to the quarterback. He's got a 1.54 10-yard split, which is a couple hundredths of a second faster than all the other guys that we've talked about. It's almost a full tenth of a second faster than Latu's 10-yard split. 97th percentile 10-yard split and 40-yard dash. Just super, super, super explosive player. But the early down stuff with 12th percentile arm length, 5th percentile wingspan, I think that does show up. And because of that, it's like, do I see you in the immediate future, the next few years, being higher than what Andrew Van Ginkel was? Probably not. And because of that, I kind of put you in the bucket that Andrew Van Ginkel was your de facto and preferred third edge rusher that has some little bit more finesse about his game. He's not 260 plus like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips are. And granted, Chop Robinson tested at 254. But the rundown stuff for Andrew, I think, was what prevented him from being a permanent de facto starter in Miami. He was a little bit more of a versatile player that won in space more than he won at the line of scrimmage, engaged with offensive blockers. And I think the same, at least early in his career, will be true for Chop Robinson. And I think some of the comparables that are listed on his athletic profile and mock draftable illustrate that, with Nick Bonito and Eli Harold and Xavier Thomas. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau and Jared Verse are also comparables on here, around 72% match. But just the year 1, year 2 outlook for Chop Robinson as an every down player is where I have my biggest questions. And because of that, he checks in 5th on the list as the day 2 player. Now, the other two, I know I wanted to outline the top 100 guys first. I have 2 guys that I think are really, really fascinating third round grades. This is, of course, the challenge for Miami. You all don't have a third round pick right now. So do you take one of these guys at 55? Probably not. I'd have a difficult time envisioning either one of these 2 players being the best available player at 55. But all the same, these are top 100 players at a premier position that I think, for different reasons, could be really attractive options for the Dolphins for what they bring. Start with Mohamed Kamara. He's my 6th edge in the class. I've kind of gotten on the soapbox and already talked about him, so I won't exhaust too much of that. 6'1.5", 248 pounds. He's got 32 3/8 inch arms, so length is not really a thing here. But he has all the same explosiveness with his first step that Chop Robinson has and that Jared Verse has. Like he is that twitched up as a player. And the player that lands on his mock draftable comparison in the top 5 that I think is an especially notable player is a player who I see enough parallels with how he wins as a pass rusher, and that's Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick Ngakoue came in the league out of Maryland in 2016, and everybody kind of raised their eyebrows with, well, he's a 6'2", 250-pound edge rusher with 32.5-inch arms. Is the length really going to play? But here's the thing. Muhammad Kamara is tested more explosive than Yannick Ngakoue. And Yannick has a couple of like go-to moves in his bag. I think Kamara's got some power here. So if you wanted the Andrew Van Ginkel type player, I don't think Kamara's as good in space, as fluid in space, but from a stature perspective, from a first step quickness perspective, I think he's got a little bit more power than Andrew Van Ginkel did, even if he has less finesse moves. Learning from Shaq Barrett makes a lot of sense. It's the 6th ranked edge that I have in this class. And the 7th, the other guy that I have with a 3rd round grade, is Austin Booker from Kansas. This is a really fascinating player. He's a little bit more undersized as well, but he has length, which Kamara doesn't have. And that's kind of where I think, like, okay, there's a foundational athletic profile here for him to build into a different kind of player. 6'4", 240 pounds, 81.5-inch wingspan, which is 67th percentile, almost 34-inch arms. He doesn't quite have the same first step, but he's so slippery and loose. I think he could be a different style of complementary pass rush role, kind of liking him a little bit more to, say, a Tyus Bowser, right? Tyus Bowser from the Baltimore scheme, who's a free agent. That might be a player that would be worth the Dolphins kicking the tires on if they end up going with a mid-round edge guy. But Booker's the other top 100 player for me in this class. So top 7, Verse Latu Turner. Those are first-round grades. Late 1, early 2, Darius Robinson. Ultimate scheme versatility kind of guy would be your 4th. That's kind of the line where your 4th edge rushers when everyone's healthy would start. Chop Robinson, Muhammad Kamara, Austin Booker, a couple of day 3 guys that I really like. We're going to get into them to finish here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. I have been told I have quite the competitive streak to me, and my friends aren't lying when they say that that's true. I do have a competitive side, and we all do. My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly, where you play on not just one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but I can also rob their vaults for riches for myself. And the leaderboards show who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just my competitive side that loves it. It's also my collaborative side. You could team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Day 3, guys. I did a total of 16 edge rushers. So then when you put the top 3 Dolphins guys on the board, it's about 20 players that I have. Some big-time toolsy guys with the other half. So you had 7. Not a math guy, but I could tell you 7 minus 16, or I guess 16 minus 7. You got 9 guys on day 3 that I have graded. I have 4 in the 4th round. I have 4 in the 5th round, and then I have a 6th round pick. This is not an all-encompassing list, but in the name of getting a full draft board put together in time for the actual draft, we're going to round out of, I think we're going to finish around 220 players is about where we're going to finish for grades. I only have so much time in the day, right? The order, edge 8, Gabriel Murphy from UCLA. Edge 9, Adisa Isaac from Penn State. Edge 10 is Clemson's Xavier Thomas, and edge 11 is Jonah Ellis from Utah. Those are all 4th round grades. Isaac is one that I like a lot as a developmental type of player. The quote-unquote other edge rusher from Penn State. He's long, 34-inch arms. He's tall, 6'4". He's 250 pounds. He's got above average athleticism. I think he's a little bit better as a run defender. I think he's a better run defender than Chop Robinson is right now. Chop's wins in the run game come with early penetration and being in the backfield and being right on top of guys really quick. I think Isaac's a little bit better with playing and playing to the length that he does have, which Chop does not have. He just does not have the pass rush instinct or the first step explosiveness or the elite traits to lean into. So if you wanted like an early down rotational type of guy, I think Isaac's somebody who would make a lot of sense and is maybe there when you get to 158. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone before that. But I also wouldn't be surprised just because the pass rush ceiling's not there if he did hang around a little longer. I don't think with the athleticism, Gabriel Murphy's going to be there, but if you end up collecting some early day 3 picks, this might be a name worth knowing. 6'2.5". He has 250 pounds, a sub 1.6 10-yard split, so another first step explosive type of player. 39.5-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump. These are all like 80th plus percentile tests at the combine. The challenge is we've talked about length. We talked about 34, 33, 32, 32 and a half. Gabe Murphy's at 30 and a half, right? And I think that shows up where he is the ultimate play around people type of body type and skill set. If you're asking him to play in line and get attached to a blocker and deconstruct a block and break it down and shed the block and tackle at the line of scrimmage, that's not his game, right? So it's the polar opposite of Adisa Isaac from Penn State, but they're guys for different reasons based on athletic profiles, disruptiveness, length, whatever. They both have appealing traits for Miami as early day 3 guys. The other 2 guys, Xavier Thomas and Jonah Ellis, are guys that I think have really good first step explosiveness. And Xavier Thomas has been seemingly at Clemson for forever. He dealt with some injuries early in his career. He's not a big guy, 6'2", 245. He's got 33-inch arms, but he's got linear explosiveness. He's got some power to him. He plays under bodies a lot as a result. Some names on the mock draftable comparable chart that I see some flashes of would include like D'Angelo Malone, who's a 3rd-round pick for the Falcons a few years back, who sometimes played stack off the ball. And I don't think he's an off-ball linebacker, but as a player who plays downhill or blitzes or gets into interior gaps from depth, but can also line up on the edge and attack you with speed, I think that is the name of Xavier Thomas's game. I think the player who is most like Andrew Van Ginkel in this year's class is Jonah Ellis from Utah. But remember, Andrew Van Ginkel was drafted in the 5th round as a JUCO transfer into Wisconsin. Jonah Ellis, at 6'2", 248 pounds, 33-inch arms, wins with finesse, has some surprising pass rush variety at his disposal. I think he gets knocked around a little bit too much in the run game for you to feel like he's an early down player. But I think he's the one that has the athletic profile and kind of the stature that you feel like that's a dude that could play in space if you gave him enough time to further develop as a player. In case in point, Andrew Van Ginkel was 6'3", 240 pounds with 32.5-inch arms coming out of the NFL Combine in 2019 as a member of the Wisconsin Badgers before being drafted by the Dolphins in the 5th round. So Jonah Ellis is the last of the 4th-round grades that I do carry. The 5th round guys, Chris Braswell from Alabama, Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan, Jalix Hunt from Houston Christian, Braylon Trice from Washington, and Javon Sullivan from Troy is the 6th round grade that I carry. So 4 5th-round grades, Braswell, Nealand, Hunt, and Trice. Nealand and Hunt are really buzzy names, but they are names for me that I think they're probably, you're looking at more favorable 3-year forecasts than you are looking at year 1 forecasts. They're both just really raw in different ways. Hunt used to be a safety, ends up at Houston Christian, moving up on the line of scrimmage to play on the edge. He's long, he's fluid as a former defensive back. You'd expect that. So you see all that in his game, but just the instincts of playing up on the line of scrimmage is still very much a work in progress. I think Marshawn Nealon moved around a lot at Western Michigan because he's an athlete capable of doing it, but I think it came at the detriment of his development as a player. So for Miami, it's like, okay, do you want to bring that kind of player in on day 3, especially when Chris Greer talks about you get into day 3 where your board gets torn to shreds because everybody's picked all the players and all that, and it's a little bit less about best player available, and instead, like, that's where you start to address some of your needs. So maybe they don't go edge early and they come out and they say, hey, we know we need a 4th edge. Let's draft a guy here on one of these earlier day 3 picks that we have. And it is one of those kinds of guys. If they were to go that route, I would expect Chris Braswell from Alabama with a little bit more of a pedigree, who maybe just doesn't have the ceiling that you would want, but has played at a certain level of competition and been an edge guy for an extended period, would be the kind of pick. And I think case in point, that's manifested why he's the top 5 that I have. Braylon Trice is maybe a name that's surprising to hear is a little bit lower down on this list than some of the others. But he's a player who I really struggled with kind of reconciling who he is as a player. He cut 25 pounds or so to come in at 245 at the combine and then ran in the 4.7s. So just I don't think he's particularly explosive. I think he's slippery for a big guy, but he played in the 270s. He doesn't have length, 32.5-inch arms. That's 12th percentile, again, amongst edge rushers. He cut to be a 7th percentile weight player, a 245, and then had a 40th percentile 10-yard split, which is your first step explosiveness. So it's like, okay, like, are you going to play long-term at 240? Are you going to play in the 270s? And if so, like, what's your explosiveness level there? I didn't think explosiveness was something that he really showcased at Washington. I think he's a little bit more just a high motor hustle, clean it up guy. And some of the athletic comparables, I think, kind of put him in a stratosphere that I recognize. Quincy Roche from University of Miami, Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame, Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma, Tim Williams from Alabama. I don't know if you guys are draft nicks, but if you recognize those names, all of those guys have kind of struggled to find their footing in the league because of their body type, explosiveness, conflict that exists. And I put Braylon Trice in that same kind of bucket. So that's the edge rushers that I do have. 16 of them plus the Dolphins 3. In short, if you want an upgrade over Shaq Barrett, you got 3 cracks at it with Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu, and Dallas Turner. You get beyond that, there are some really good scheme fits for Miami. The question is that going to be an intersection of best player available for you or not? We'll see if the Dolphins see it the same way. If they draft an edge guy and where that happens, that'll be, 8-9 days from now. And keep it locked in. Meanwhile, here on Locked on Dolphins, we have a very special next episode coming up with a couple of friends from the Dolphins community. Looking forward to bringing you that as our next show. So keep it locked in right here on Locked on Dolphins. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast or on YouTube. Fins up.